morning and welcome to The Street on BNN Bloomberg. I'm Roger Peterson. Thank you very much for joining us. Coming up on the show today, Ryan Bushell, CEO and Portfolio Manager at New Haven Asset Management, is our guest co-host. He'll help us make sense of the news coming out of Davos today. And then it's also Bell Let's Talk Day today. And Bailey Parnell, founder and CEO of Skills Camp, is here to talk about how developing strong soft skills in business can help your teams thrive. And of course, we want to hear from you this morning on First Call. You can call us, 1-855-326-6266, or email us your questions on Canadian dividend-paying equities. We'll have Ryan answer as many of them as he can at the end of the show. Again, that number, 1-855-326-6266. And the phone line's open in about 30 minutes. The email address up on the screen right now, firstcall@bellmedia.ca. Now, some of the stories we're tracking for you in the BNN Bloomberg newsroom. Royal Bank of Canada CEO Dave Mackay says fluid trade with Canada is good for the U.S., adding America risks a surge in inflation if flows between both countries are strangled off. Talking to Bloomberg TV on the sidelines of Davos, Mackay said Canada helps the U.S. with affordability. He also said CUSMA is key for the economies of both countries. Canadian environmental services company GFL is moving its headquarters from Vaughan, just north of Toronto, to Miami Beach, Florida. GFL's CEO says the move gives the company broader U.S. opportunities, which currently make up 2/3 of its revenue. The company will maintain shared service hubs in Ontario with its incorporation also remaining in the province. And speaking at Davos, International Trade Minister Maninder Sidhu says Canada must expand trade with India, especially in agriculture and energy. He says formal talks on a new economic agreement could begin in February as Ottawa takes a pragmatic approach to repairing strained ties. India is the next target in Mark Carney's push to diversify trade, which Sidhu says is destined to be the third largest economy in the world. And now our top line story. Strong words from Canada's Prime Minister addressing leaders at the World Economic Forum in Davos. He did not mention the U.S. president, though, but Mark Carney also said the rules-based world order is fading and we must adapt. And he reaffirmed Canada's support for Greenland. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver is in Davos with more on Carney's remarks, which triggered an audible reaction of support from the room.
Nestled in the usually calm mountains of the ski town Davos, a chaotic meeting of hundreds of politicians and top business leaders at the World Economic Forum that this year Prime Minister Mark Carney used to deliver a frank message about the future.
The old order is not coming back. We shouldn't mourn it. Nostalgia is not a strategy. But we believe that from the fracture, we can build something bigger, better, stronger, more just.
Carney declared the U.S.-led world order dead and said countries must turn inward now that it's clear integration can lead to subordination.
Call it what it is, a system of intensifying great power rivalry where the most powerful pursue their interests using economic integration as coercion.
Withstanding those economic shocks, the Prime Minister said will require like-minded countries to pivot, to work together to hedge uncertainty. While Trump's name was never mentioned, Carney did call on middle powers like Canada to push back against domination by great powers, using tariffs as leverage and supply chains as vulnerabilities to be exploited.
In a world of great power rivalry, the countries in between have a choice. Compete with each other for favor, or to combine to create a third path with impact.
The message receiving what organizers described as a rare standing ovation at a summit where geopolitics and the future of Greenland is looming large.
Our commitment to NATO's Article 5 is unwavering. Canada strongly opposes tariffs over Greenland and calls for focused talks to achieve our shared objectives of security and prosperity in the Arctic.
Carney may get a chance to raise his concerns about Greenland directly to the U.S. president. While no meeting is currently scheduled between Carney and Donald Trump, the U.S. president will be here tomorrow at the same time as Mark Carney. Annie Bergeron-Oliver, CTV News, Davos, Switzerland.
Let's get some reaction on that speech. Also, what we can expect from Trump, the impact on everything. We're going to bring in our guest co-host. No pressure. Ryan Bushell is CEO and portfolio manager at New Haven Asset Management. Let's first talk a little bit about that speech. What did you think about it? What did you like? What were you concerned about?
So, I mean, I think it is good to address what's going on in the world, and I tend to agree that trying to live within the past construct that we've been living in for the past 30 or 40 years isn't going to do us a lot of good. However, I'm reminded, that Davos is a speaking tour for most people that are there, and I'm more interested in actions. So I think for Canada, I would like to see a little less talk, a little lower profile, given the position we're in, and try to let as much of this blow over our heads as we can while preparing at home. And that's where, again, a lot of talk I don't think is going to do us a lot of good. I think we need to talk about we need to start building, metal refining capabilities. We need to start building more energy export capabilities and things that are going to make our economy strong and diversified.
Okay, so that's one side, and now, of course, Trump. What are you looking for? What are you expecting today from his speech in about 20 minutes or 25 minutes?
Well, I mean, you never know what to expect with Trump, right? He does tend to get into tangents, and so I think it could go a lot of different directions. I think what the market's looking for is any sort of escalation, or I think what the market is hoping for is de-escalation, clearly on these trade threats that he's making to Europe at the moment. Any broad escalation of tariffs, as we saw last April, is troublesome for the market. However, the market has also kind of sniffed out that until we see action, again, talk is one thing, action is another. Until we see action, I think the market's going to sort of play a game of chicken with Donald Trump, not to use that taco phrase, but they are going to keep pushing the market until they see real action. What I'm more concerned about is the bond market. Which nobody has really talked about in the longest time. So let's talk about it. What are your worries about it? So Amber Kanwar in her newsletter yesterday or 2 days ago had a good line about Trump can pick a fight with the stock market, but he doesn't want to pick a fight with the bond market. Remember that the bond market is several times larger than the equity market and sets funding rates for basically all lending. So when you look at government bond yields in the U.S., you can see they've spiked up to just under 4.3%. They were over 4.3 yesterday, and now coming off again as potentially there's hope that things will be de-escalated. But that's also being driven by what's happening in Japan. Japan bond yields have spiked from 3.8% to about 4.2 in a very short period of time in the last couple of weeks. And what that does is it puts stress on the carry trade, where people borrow cheaply in Japan and invest that money elsewhere, including the U.S., including equities and especially U.S. bonds. Combined with the fact that in recent years, Europe has been the biggest purchaser of treasury bonds as China has fallen away. So you're starting to tick off Europe as well, and Denmark's already saying we're going to sell our $100 million position. Well, that's a drop in the bucket. But symbolically, if that source of funding goes away, meaning you've got the carry trade starting to falter, you've got maybe European governments saying, hey, we're going to diversify away from buying U.S. treasuries. That puts stress on the bond market, and that, to me, is a major implication for U.S. financial markets and the U.S. economy.
And what would that do? Where would that take those markets then?
Well, if U.S. rates go higher, I mean, the U.S. Treasury's already not funding their debt longer term, right? They're still issuing short-term bills, and they're basically trying to cap rates at the short end by influencing the Fed. So that just puts more pressure on that trade. The more that short rates are trying to be pushed down by whatever means, saying the economy's, the inflation is low, cut rates, or just explicitly putting who they want in charge of the Fed and moving that direction. But if all rates should be moving down in that case, right? So that's the market's going to want to see. But if you start to see that steepening happening, especially at the long end where it starts to get away from them, that's going to be problematic for the U.S. government.
So how are you looking at all this? How are you dealing with it?
Well, we wrote in our commentary that sort of similar to Mark Carney's remarks that this has to change the way we look at all investments, and that the investments of today that are being valued quite richly, a certain amount of them could be rapidly reprioritized in a world where sovereignty is at risk. So we are focused on owning long-lived assets that have staying power and stability, infrastructure, utilities, power generation, energy production. We own a little bit of gold, and trying to have that portfolio that's sort of come what may. We think that's the best we can do. We're having government bond rates, as we said, especially at the short end, being taken down to levels that are below inflation, and continuing to cut rates when inflation is above those short-term rates. So that's lost saving, that's erosion of capital. And like I said as well, on the long end, you've got risk the long end goes higher, so that could erode your capital, meaning that, you get a higher rate, but your bond prices go down. So we think that equities are the best way to go, but it's a very selective group.
Okay, we'll leave it on that note there, but lots more to talk about. We'll take a look at the markets before the bell. We'll also hear from Bailey Parnell, founder and CEO of Skills Camp, to talk about how developing strong soft skills in business can help your teams thrive. Stick around. All right, let's see how things are shaping up on the markets. We'll start with U.S. futures, and after its biggest one-day drop since October, when President Trump stoked tariff fears again. That happened yesterday, that big drop. Well, today they're off, but not as bad. They were actually up a little earlier. We'll see what happens, of course, when the markets open. Heading over to Asia, and fiscal policy concerns in Japan having some weight on the Nikkei. It's up by 0.41. The Hang Seng, though, it's up right now, 0.37, and the CSI 300 by 0.09. Pretty much a wash there. Over to Europe now, and not surprising to see them in the red over the concerns with the U.S.-Europe tariff worries, and we'll see what happens with all that. The FTSE still above 10,000, but down today by about 0.2. CAC off by 0.36, and the German DAX taking a bit of a hit today. It's up by 1.12. And the TSX yesterday, wow, it pulled back from its record high on Monday, but it's still up for the year. We're not even at the end of January, still up 3 to 4% right now. We'll see what happens, of course, today. Some of the movers we can look at from yesterday. G Mining up nearly 11%. Same for Orla Mining. Shopify going the other way, up by 6.6%, and ATS off by more than 7%. And taking a look at the metals, silver's pulled back a little bit earlier. It was up over 95, but gold, look at it, it's up 2.25%. Safe Haven approaching $4,900 US. Copper, it is going back up towards record territory. And silver sitting in record territory. When we talk about it being down, it's really not down that much. Heading over to oil. Concerns in Kazakhstan and the Caspian system, and that's kind of fueling prices right now. WCS yesterday was up 0.35%, and south of the border, WTI up over 60 right now. 60.61 is what it's trading at right now. Hasn't been above 60 in a little while. Okay, today is Bell Let's Talk Day, and here on the street, we're exploring how soft skills can make for good business. Our next guest has worked with the UN, the NFL, and governments to share insights on human skills development. Here to talk about it is Dr. Bailey Parnell, founder and CEO of Skills Camp. Doctor, thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate it. Those are some tough groups you worked with on soft skills. I mean, the NFL, what was it like working for them, and what were some of the focuses for the soft skills there?
Yes, well, there you can imagine that when you have talent or when you have people in the public, you know better than most, that you also get the scrutiny with that. And what can that do to your performance? What can that do to your game? That was kind of where we were focusing at that time, which was how the public scrutiny and social media can focus. But that's an everyone thing, really. It doesn't matter if you're performing in peak performance, whether it's in political, diplomacy, athletics, whatever it might be. What happens in your life, sometimes delivered to you via social media and sometimes not, affects your mental well-being. It affects how you operate and how you can perform.
Right.
I was just sort of curious, in the financial industry, there's been a lot made of, especially the investment banking profession, long hours, and then that starting to change and wear on people. I'm just curious if you had any experience there.
I do have a lot of experience in finance and tech and all of the things. And Unfortunately, there is research to support the fact that you cannot replace long hours when it comes to burnout and when it comes to people not being able to work simply from a health perspective, things like sick leaves, absenteeism, and the long hours does correlate with that. But there are things that can be done in those hours in order to help people achieve sense of well-being, or how we look at performance, peak performance really, for any person, is that it's not just time. It's time, and then there's energy, and then there's attention. And you know that even when you have the time to do something, you may not have any energy in that time, and it's still not effective. And then even if you do have the energy, you may be giving your attention away to something like a distraction or someone at your door, and then you're still not doing the things that you want to do. But energy management and attention management is actually where you can create more in that time. And so it's much better for well-being to focus there sometimes.
And how would you incorporate that into the corporate world? I mean, because it's the go, go, go 24/7. I mean, now they're looking at expanding the markets. There's no rest for the wicked sometimes.
Yes, well, it does seem counterintuitive sometimes in an old, I guess, pocketbook or bottom line to think, how am I going to help my people with their energy management and attention management, like focus? How is helping my people focus better? Or think about different kinds of energies. Like for us, we'll focus on physical, seems to be the most obvious, but there's also your emotional energy, your cognitive energy. And for a lot of people, there's also spiritual energy, or what we might call like purpose or drive, or what are we doing this for? And you can have all the physical energy in the world, but if you're distracted or you're feeling off, or what we're talking about with Bell Let's Talk Day, mental health, it won't matter. So for us, we go into a lot of organizations and we're often helping leaders figure out how can we get the best, even in finance, how can we help people be their best self? Because we believe, and those companies believe, that if they're their best self, they're going to take care of their work, they're going to take care of our clients, and our bottom line will be taken care of.
So it does pay off. What are some of the things, simple things sometimes that companies can incorporate? Yeah. And how do you overcome? I imagine there is some resistance to this. How do you overcome the resistance to it?
I'll tell you the most effective thing, which may not be expected, and then I'll tell you the sort of easier ways that companies get into it. Easy ways that companies go to is when they focus on things like total rewards, benefits. Like, do you even have sick days that you pay for? And we're talking different levels and sizes of businesses. So that answer is not the same across the board. One, do you put on paper that we honor the whole human experience, really, and that we understand, of course, it affects how you walk into this work. But actually, probably the linchpin, the most important thing that would determine whether or not your employees are engaged is, do you have leadership development? Do you actually have leaders? Because, and here's why I say this, the biggest contributor to your employees' engagement is their direct manager, their direct boss, their direct leader. About over 80% of the variance. And within that, over 70% of that engagement is, do they have emotional intelligence? So that's things like, does your leader talk to you about you? Do they give you space to exist outside of the work that's on the paper? And if not, then you are having to disassociate at work. And that's another cognitive load on top of what you already have to do. So I would say what organizations should do more is develop better leaders, because you will definitely reach your goals better and faster. But the side benefit would actually be more engaged, more healthy employees. And that's unexpected for a lot of folks.
Now, is there a concern with the engaging people? Is there a concern that you might ask the wrong questions and people are afraid to actually get to know some of the people they work with?
There is sometimes a fear, just as there's a fear when you meet someone on the street, that you might get it wrong. And so what we try to do is, when we're trying to create cultures of relationships, that we would say, that we're going to leave room for you to make mistakes. And we're going to invite that, and we're going to teach a leader how to have those conversations. And really having difficult conversations and building relationships actually is cornerstone of our leadership work. And for that reason, it's the thing that is hardest, especially in Canada. Everyone wants to be kind. Like, it doesn't seem that way all the time.
We're the land of sorry, right?
Like when you watch the news, but most people we run into actually want to do a good job. Like, most people don't want to offend their employees. And if you run with that as the base, you can say, well, here's some small ways to change your language that you may not have realized would invite a different response. Like, how was your weekend versus, what did you get up to this weekend? And suddenly I'm going to learn a little bit more about you, and I'm going to learn threads that I can pull that would actually build a real relationship.
Just sort of curious again, too, on when you're building a corporate culture, like what are those cornerstones that you want to work with in terms of, like, what are the top 2 or 3 priorities that you want to set as a corporate culture to get your employees to be engaged? Because I would say it's difficult to always have everybody want to be as passionate as you are. Being an owner of my own business, like it's me, it's everything that goes through me. But how do you expand that onto your employees the best?
If you're trying to build a corporate culture, at risk of repeating, a similar message, I would say the most important thing you can do is invest in your leaders. And I mean your people leaders. I don't mean management of things and finances and priorities. I mean, who are the ones responsible for how people show up in the workplace? They are absolutely, for me, you will see the biggest results with employee engagement. But then they need to be able to lean on something too. So do they have protected time to even have a one-on-one with someone? And if they don't, then that leader's answering to another leader that's not actually supporting them. The second thing is companies often are not living their values. Like we often hear a lot, mission, vision, values, and principles, priorities. And it's like, we invest so much time in this. We make it such a huge brand. We put it on the walls. We put it on the website. We make it part of recruitment and branding and all this stuff. But then when you actually talk on the ground to the people, it's, well, how do they live respect? And how do they live inclusion? And what does that look like in behaviors? And there's a lot of organizations that I would say are not living their values. And if they can actually, what we would call is operationalize those values, what does it actually look like when we meet with a client? That is better learning design, really. It's actually better how adults, even doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter how long you've been in the business, to show up to a company that says we value respect. I'll tell you, there's 3 people here, there's 3 different definitions of respect. Okay. And so for adult learners or workers or leaders to say, like, what does that look like in practice would be very helpful for culture. That's actually how culture is created. And then culture in general is created from even here in Canada, is created from having shared histories and language and music and those values and things like that. Companies that are really thinking about how culture is formed are actually probably heading over into sociology, anthropology, and thinking like, do we have colors? Do we have language that everybody knows? Or when people are onboarded, do we not tell them what the acronyms mean?
Okay.
So they can't be part of culture.
All right, we have to wrap it up there. But Doctor, thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Very happy.
That was Dr. Bailey Parnell, founder and CEO of Skills Camp. Up next, we're back with Brian. He was the CEO and portfolio manager at New Haven Asset Management to see why Brookfield is on his radar. Time to see what's on the radar for Ryan Bushell, CEO and portfolio manager at New Haven Asset Management. And Ryan, Brookfield, or various parts of Brookfield, is what you're paying attention to right now.
Yeah, so I think when I was on Market Call in December, I spoke about Brookfield Infrastructure and how the spread between the corporate units, which is just a fund that's incorporated in Canada and New York, I believe they have dual listed, that holds the underlying partnership units. And that's for corporate governance reasons for institutional investors, where a lot of them are not allowed to own the partnership units and they own the corporate structure instead. And so what that basically says is that the smart money, in quotation marks, that is valuing Brookfield on the corporate side is valuing at a much higher level than Brookfield Infrastructure than the partnership units, which are largely held by retail investors and largely held in Canada. So it seems to me that there is an opportunity to buy the partnership units, especially as a Canadian, especially in a registered account, at a major discount, get the exact same thing, higher yield, with the thought that that spread might be closed. And so lo and behold, and we own both of these companies, Brookfield Renewable last week announced that they are doing an at-the-market equity issuance of $400 million of the corporate units to buy the partnership units. So basically that's almost like a share exchange or almost an acquisition. Now, because it's an at-the-market, it didn't get a huge response. If it was a bought deal or something where the money was actually bought and paid for by the institutional community to go out and buy that, then it would be a little bit different. But I still think the spread is really wide. The spread on Brookfield Renewable units, you see here, they're about $38. The corporate units are closer to $50. So
What's driving that spread?
Again, especially on the renewable side, there's been a lot of negative press on renewables, but actually, if you look at what Brookfield Renewable is doing with the nuclear side of their business, institutional investors are looking for any type of exposure to nuclear, and Brookfield Renewable owns a majority stake in Westinghouse. So I think that's what's driving it, is you've got this disconnect of people look at the retail community is looking at Brookfield Renewable one way, the institutional community is looking at it another way. And to me, again, it's rare that you have the smart money paying more for something that you can buy as a retail investor much cheaper. So I think it's a good opportunity.
And you're pretty confident with that announcement. Did they move after that announcement?
It moved a little bit. The spread came in about 2%, but it's still historically wide. So it was about 41, 42% premium to the units at the peak, and now we're sitting sort of 38. So again, you're looking at a 5+% distribution yield, and if you're in a non-taxable account, you don't have to worry about the tax consequences of owning a Bermuda-based limited partnership. It just all goes in as your dividend return or your distribution return. Whereas on the corporate units, it's about 3.79. So you're getting, again, like a major yield pickup, plus the fact that that spread should close in your favor, or at least you've got less downside if and when things go the other way. So you're protected by the yield, and you're also protected by the fact that you're trading at a big discount.
Okay, what are some of the things that would bring them closer together, and what are some of the things that might drive them further apart?
I'm surprised how far apart that they are. So the thing that would drive them further apart would be, again, just more enthusiasm from the institutional community about these companies and not being reflected by the partnership units. To me, again, like even outside of the tax consequences for the distribution being slightly more taxable in a taxable account, I think people should start buying the units, and that spread should close. Like it's one of these things where it's sort of like a structural issue of either people don't understand it or they're just not willing to, they can't go there. The institutional community can't buy the units, right? They're just, a lot of them just not allowed, full stop. So the spread has persisted, but it's been as low as 2 or 3%, and now it's 40. So to me, that's pretty rich. And again, that when Brookfield comes out themselves and says, "Hey, this is too wide. We're going to start leveling this off." Again, I think that bodes well for the unit holders.
Okay, we'll wrap it up there, but we are awaiting U.S. President Donald Trump. He's going to address the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, and we will bring you that speech when it happens. Also, of course, our phone lines will open soon for our first call segment. It may be interrupted by that speech, won't lie, but still, call us anyways, 1-855-326-6266, or send us an email, firstcall@bellmedia.ca. Reuters is reporting Cenovus Energy is considering the sale of its oil and gas assets in Alberta worth about $3 billion. Calgary-based company is looking to cut debt after its recent takeover of MEG Energy. Sources telling Reuters that Cenovus has reached out to potential buyers in recent weeks to see if there is interest. Plans are still at an early stage, and Cenovus could ultimately decide to retain the assets. Shares of Netflix are falling on the pre-market. Fourth quarter results by the streaming giant largely beat estimates. However, the American company issued a cautious forecast for the months ahead, citing higher program spending and the cost of closing its deal with Warner Brothers, which will add $275 million US in costs for 2026. According to its letter to shareholders, Netflix will pause share buybacks to accumulate cash for the acquisition. Johnson & Johnson shares now up. They were down earlier. They're up 2.45% right now in the pre-market, despite the company posting estimates beating sales in the fourth quarter. The slide comes as individual drug sales saw mixed results with the slide earlier. Now it's bounced back. Let's get that out of there now. All this happened with the individual drug sales, which saw mixed results with new cancer treatments increasing by more than 20% and other drugs like Stelara dropping almost 50%. The company has raised its outlook for 2026, even as the White House moves to slash prices for key drug companies. And looking at the U.S. futures, shaping up to be another down day. But of course, I think everybody's waiting to hear what President Trump will say, and that may see those suddenly flip around. But right now, Dow's off by 0.33, NASDAQ off by about a quarter point, and the S&P 500 off by 0.15. And of course, all of this, it's about Donald Trump right now. He's expected to address the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, any minute now. And while we wait, let's bring our guest co-host back in, Ryan Bushell, CEO and Portfolio Manager at New Haven Asset Management. This was on your radar, and we were talking about it, and Trump is expected to talk about it. Venezuela. What do you think we'll hear from him, and what are your thoughts on Venezuela and how things have unfolded down there?
Well, again, predicting what we'll hear from him is a fool's errand. But
it's fun because sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong, and you just never know.
I just, I have a hard time following. But with Venezuela for Canada, obviously it's material, right? They're a big producer of heavy oil and and we're a bigger producer in the past, and could be a much bigger producer. But I actually think that this is from the oil market's point of view, this is a lot more bluster than it is reality. Mm-hmm. You had ExxonMobil come out and say exactly what I thought, which is this country's uninvestable. And I don't think Donald Trump liked that very much, and said, well, fine, we're cutting you out. But if you look at it from Exxon's point of view, it's not as simple as drilling shale wells in the U.S. with existing infrastructure. It's actually more akin to starting up an oil sands project, meaning that there's a lot of upfront capital that needs to go into the ground before that oil can be produced. They've got dilapidated, failing infrastructure. It's also in areas that are not necessarily politically stable, even within Venezuela. Like there are rebel cartels that control certain areas. And so you have to get the pipeline infrastructure up and running to handle 1-2 million barrels a day of oil that can actually pump it out to the coast to be exported before you can actually start producing it. It's not just as simple as we drill a well, the oil comes out, and we're good to go. In the Permian, where Exxon's a big operator, there was existing infrastructure. That reservoir has been there for decades. They were able to tack on to existing infrastructure. It took time. It wasn't easy to go from 7 million barrels a day. I mean, it's one of the greatest feats in modern history that the U.S. went from 7-8 million barrels a day to 14 again, or 13 and a half, or whatever it got to at the peak.
Okay. I'm going to cut you off there, Ryan, because we've got Trump. President Trump is about to speak in Davos, Switzerland. Let's have a listen.
Well, thank you very much, Larry. It's great to be back in beautiful Davos, Switzerland, and to address so many respected business leaders, so many friends, few enemies, and all of the distinguished guests. It's a who's who, I will say that. I've come to this year's World Economic Forum with truly phenomenal news from America. Yesterday marked the one-year anniversary of my inauguration, and today, after 12 months back in the White House, our economy is booming, growth is exploding, productivity is surging, investment is soaring, incomes are rising, inflation has been defeated, our previously open and dangerous border is closed and virtually impenetrable. And the United States is in the midst of the fastest and most dramatic economic turnaround in our country's history. Under the Biden administration, America was plagued by the nightmare of stagflation, meaning low growth and high inflation, a recipe for misery, failure, and decline. But now, after just 1 year of my policies, we are witnessing the exact opposite. Virtually no inflation and extraordinarily high economic growth. Growth like I believe you'll see very shortly our country has never seen before, perhaps no country has ever seen before. Over the past 3 months, core inflation has been just 1.6%. Meanwhile, fourth quarter growth is projected to be 5.4%, far greater than anybody other than myself and a few others had predicted. Since the election, the stock market has set 52 all-time high records. So that's in 1 year, 52 records, adding $9 trillion in value to retirement accounts, 401ks, and people's savings. People are doing very well. They're very happy with me. Since my inauguration, we've lifted more than 1.2 million people off of food stamps, and after 4 years in which Biden secured less than $1 trillion of new investment in our country. Think of that, 1 trillion, substantially less than that. In 4 years, we've secured commitments for a record-breaking $18 trillion, and we think when the final numbers come out, they'll be closer to $20 trillion of investment. That's never been done by any country at any time, not even close. Just over 1 year ago, under the radical left Democrats, we were a dead country. Now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world. In fact, the United States economy is on pace to grow at double the rate that was projected by the IMF just last April. And with my growth and tariff policies, it should be much higher. I really believe we can be much higher than that. And this is all great news, and it's great for all nations. The USA is the economic engine on the planet, and when America booms, the entire world booms. It's been the history. When it goes bad, it goes bad. You all follow us down, and you follow us up, and we're at a point that I don't believe we've ever been. I never thought we could do it this quickly. My biggest surprise is I thought it would take more than a year, maybe like a year and 1 month. But it's happened very quickly. This afternoon, I want to discuss how we have achieved this economic miracle, how we intend to raise living standards for our citizens to levels never seen before, and perhaps how you too and the places where you come from can do much better by following what we're doing, because certain places in Europe are not even recognizable, frankly, anymore. They're not recognizable. And we can argue about it, but there's no argument. Friends come back from different places. I don't want to insult anybody, and say, I don't recognize it. And that's not in a positive way. That's in a very negative way. And I love Europe, and I want to see Europe go good, but it's not heading in the right direction. In recent decades, it became conventional wisdom in Washington and European capitals that the only way to grow a modern Western economy was through ever-increasing government spending, unchecked mass migration, and endless foreign imports. The consensus was that so-called dirty jobs and heavy industry should be sent elsewhere, that affordable energy should be replaced by the Green New Scam, and that countries could be propped up by importing new and entirely different populations from faraway lands. This was the path that Sleepy Joe Biden administration and many other Western governments very foolishly followed, turning their backs on everything that makes nations rich and powerful and strong. And there's so much potential in so many nations. The result was record budget and trade deficits and a growing sovereign deficit driven by the largest wave of mass migration in human history. We've never seen anything like it. Quite frankly, many parts of our world are being destroyed before our very eyes, and the leaders don't even understand what's happening. And the ones that do understand aren't doing anything about it. Virtually all of the so-called experts predicted my plans to end this failed model would trigger a global recession and runaway inflation. But we have proven them wrong. It's actually just the opposite. In 1 year, our agenda has produced a transformation like America has not seen in over 100 years. Instead of closing down energy plants, we're opening them up. Instead of building ineffective, money-losing windmills, we're taking them down and not approving any. Instead of empowering bureaucrats, we're firing them, and they're going out and getting jobs in the private sector for 2 and 3 times what they were making in government. So they started off hating me when we fired them, and now they love me. Instead of raising taxes on domestic producers, we're lowering them and raising tariffs on foreign nations to pay for the damage that they've caused. In 12 months, we have removed over 270,000 bureaucrats from the federal payrolls, the largest single-year reduction in government employment since the end of World War II. Nobody thought that was coming, but we had no choice. To make a country great, you can't have all federal jobs. We've cut federal spending by $100 billion and slashed the federal budget deficit by 27% in the single year. It's going to go down quite a bit more from that. Driving inflation way down from the record highs of the Biden administration. Every month, they went up and up and up. I promised to cut 10 old regulations for every single new regulation. But instead, I've cut, actually, till this point, 129 regulations for every one new regulation approved. So every time they come in with a new regulation, we do at least 10, but so far it's averaging out to 129, if you can believe it. In July, we passed the largest tax cuts in American history, including no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. We also provided 100% expensing. That's the one they like. And bonus depreciation for all new equipment and capital investments to help companies expand and shift production to America. They are so in love with that. They build a plant, they're able to deduct it immediately, the whole thing, rather than waiting 38 to 41 years in the old days. This is a miracle taking place. Nobody thought it would ever be done by any country, but it's done by us. It was what made my first term the most successful 4-year term that we've ever had from a financial standpoint. And now we've upped it. This is a 10-year program, not a 1-year program. But you're allowed to deduct everything in 1 year. It used to be 38 to 41 years. With tariffs, we've radically reduced our ballooning trade deficit, which was the largest in world history. We were losing more than $1 trillion every single year, and it was just wasted. It was going to waste. But in 1 year, I slashed our monthly trade deficit by a staggering 77%, and all of this with no inflation, something everyone said could not be done. There were a couple of brilliant people that actually thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was doing the right thing. Now they all think I'm doing the right thing because they can't believe the numbers. American exports are now up by more than $150 billion. Domestic steel production is up by 300,000 tons a month, and it's doubling over the next 4 months. It's doubling and tripling, and we have steel plants being built all over the country. Nobody thought they'd see that. Factory construction is up by 41%, and that number is really going to skyrocket right now because that's during a process that they're putting in to get their approvals, and we've given very, very quick, fast approvals. In the process, we've made historic trade deals with partners covering 40% of all U.S. trade. Some of the greatest companies and countries in the world. We have countries as our partner, too. The European nations, Japan, South Korea. They're our partners. They've gone into massive deals with us, especially on oil and gas. And these agreements raise growth and cause stock markets to boom, not only in the U.S., but virtually every country that came to make a deal, because, as you've learned, when the United States goes up, you follow. It's really become a staple. In America, I've stopped the nation-wrecking energy policies that drive up prices while sending jobs and factories to the world's worst polluters. They are indeed polluters. Under sleepy Joe Biden, new domestic oil and gas leases fell by 95%. Think of that. And they wonder, why was gasoline going up so fast? The gasoline actually topped $5 a gallon, and some places $7 a gallon, and more than 100 major power plants were violently shut down by incompetent people that had no idea what the hell they were doing. Under my leadership, U.S. natural gas production is at an all-time high by far. U.S. oil production is up by 730,000 barrels a day, and last week we picked up 50 million barrels from Venezuela alone. Venezuela has been an amazing place for so many years, but then they went bad with their policies. 20 years ago, it was a great country, and now it's got problems, but we're helping them. And those 50 million barrels, we're going to be splitting up with them, and they'll be making more money, They've made it a long time. Venezuela is going to do fantastically well. We appreciate all of the cooperation we've been giving. We've been giving great cooperation. Once the attack ended, and they said, let's make a deal. More people should do that. But Venezuela is going to make more money in the next 6 months than they've made in the last 20 years. Every major oil company is coming in with us. It's amazing. It's a beautiful thing to see. The leadership of the country has been very good. They've been very, very smart. The price of gasoline is now below $2.50 a gallon in many states, $2.30 a gallon in most states. Then we'll soon be averaging less than $2 a gallon. In many places, it's already down even lower, $1.95 a gallon. Numerous states are at $1.99, numbers that nobody has heard for years. Actually, since my last administration, we got it down to around those numbers. I've signed an order directing and approval of many new nuclear reactors. We're going heavy into nuclear. I was not a big fan because I didn't like the risk, the danger. But they have the progress they've made with nuclear is unbelievable, and the safety progress they've made is incredible. We're very much into the world of nuclear energy, and we can have it now at good prices and very, very safe. And we're leading the world in AI by a lot. We're leading China by a lot. I think President Xi respects what we've done, in part because I've allowed these big companies building these massive buildings to build their own electric capacity. They're building their own power plants, which when added up is more than any country anywhere in the world is doing. I read recently an article in the Wall Street Journal that China's creating so much energy, and they are. You got to hand it to them. But we're creating as much or more, and we're letting them do that. I'm very proud of it. It was my idea. I said, you can't create this much energy. We needed more than double the energy currently in the country just to take care of the AI plants. And I said, we can't do that. We have an old grid system. And I came up with the idea, you people are brilliant. You have a lot of money. Let's see what you can do. You can build your own electric generating plants. And they looked at me. They didn't believe me. All of the names that are, I think, in the room right now, if you want to know the truth, they didn't believe it. And I said, no, you can't. They came back 2 weeks and they didn't have the plant. They said, we thought you were kidding. I said, no, not only am I not kidding, you're going to have your approvals within 2 weeks. I always say nuclear will take 3 weeks. But most aren't going that. They're going oil and gas. They're even going coal in some cases. Because of my landslide election victory, the United States avoided the catastrophic energy collapse which befell every European nation that pursued the Green New Scam, perhaps the greatest hoax in history. The Green New Scam, windmills all over the place, destroy your land, destroy your land. Every time that goes around, you lose $1,000. You're supposed to make money with energy, not lose money. Here in Europe, we've seen the fate that the radical left tried to impose on America. They tried very hard. Germany now generates 22% less electricity than it did in 2017. And it's not the current chancellor's fault. He's solving the problem. He's going to do a great job. But what they did before he got there, I guess that's why he got there. And electricity prices are 64% higher. The United Kingdom produces just 1/3 of the total energy from all sources that it did in 1999. Think of that, 1/3. And they're sitting on top of the North Sea, one of the greatest reserves anywhere in the world, but they don't use it. And that's one reason why their energy has reached catastrophically low levels with equally high prices. High prices, very low levels. Think of that, 1/3. And you're sitting on top of the North Sea. And they like to say, well, that's depleted. It's not depleted. It's got 500 years. They haven't even found the oil. The North Sea is incredible. They don't let anybody drill. Environmentally, they don't let them drill. They make it impossible for the oil companies to go. They take 92% of the revenues. So the oil companies say, we can't do it. They came to see me. Is there anything you can do? I want Europe to do great. I want UK to do great. They're sitting on one of the greatest energy sources in the world, and they don't use it. In fact, their electricity prices have soared 139%. There are windmills all over Europe. There are windmills all over the place, and they are losers. One thing I've noticed is that the more windmills a country has, the more money that country loses and the worse that country is doing. China makes almost all of the windmills, and yet I haven't been able to find any wind farms in China. Did you ever think of that? It's a good way of looking at it. They're smart. China's very smart. They make them, they sell them for a fortune. They sell them to the stupid people that buy them, but they don't use them themselves. They put up a couple of big wind farms, but they don't use them. They just put them up to show people what they could look like. They don't spin. They don't do anything. They use a thing called coal, mostly. But China goes with the coal. They go with oil and gas. They're starting to look at nuclear a little bit, and they're doing just fine. They make a fortune selling the windmills, though, and I think really that's one that they wouldn't be surprised if it stopped. They are shocked that it continues to go. They're very friendly with me. They're shocked that people continue to buy those damn things. They killed the birds. They ruin your landscapes. Other than that, I think they're fabulous, by the way. Stupid people buy them. The consequences of such destructive policies have been stark, including lower economic growth, lower standards of living, lower birth rates, more socially disruptive migration, more vulnerability to hostile foreign adversaries, and much, much smaller militaries. The United States cares greatly about the people of Europe. We really do. I mean, look, I am derived from Europe. Scotland and Germany, 100% Scotland, my mother, 100% German, my father. And we believe deeply in the bonds we share with Europe as a civilization. I want to see it do great. That's why issues like energy, trade, immigration, and economic growth must be central concerns to anyone who wants to see a strong and united West, because Europe and those countries have to do their thing. They have to get out of the culture that they've created over the last 10 years. It's horrible what they're doing to themselves. They're destroying themselves. These beautiful, beautiful places. We want strong allies, not seriously weakened ones. We want Europe to be strong. Ultimately, these are matters of national security, and perhaps no current issue makes the situation more clear than what's currently going on with Greenland. Would you like me to say a few words of Greenland? I was going to leave it out of the speech, but I think I would have been reviewed very negatively. I have tremendous respect for both the people of Greenland and the people of Denmark, tremendous respect. But every NATO ally has an obligation to be able to defend their own territory. And the fact is, no nation or group of nations is in any position to be able to secure Greenland other than the United States. We're a great power, much greater than people even understand. I think they found that out 2 weeks ago in Venezuela. We saw this in World War II, when Denmark fell to Germany after just 6 hours of fighting and was totally unable to defend either itself or Greenland. So the United States was then compelled, we did it, we felt an obligation to do it, to send our own forces to hold the Greenland territory. And hold it we did, at great cost and expense. They didn't have a chance of getting on it, and they tried. Denmark knows that. We literally set up bases on Greenland for Denmark. We fought for Denmark. We weren't fighting for anyone else. We were fighting to save it for Denmark. Big, beautiful piece of ice. It's hard to call it land. It's a big piece of ice. But we saved Greenland and successfully prevented our enemies from gaining a foothold in our hemisphere. So we did it for ourselves also. And then after the war, which we won it big. Without us, right now you'd all be speaking German and a little Japanese, perhaps. After the war, we gave Greenland back to Denmark. How stupid were we to do that? But we did it. But we gave it back. But how ungrateful are they now? So now our country and the world face much greater risks than it did ever before because of missiles, because of nuclear, because of weapons of warfare that I can't even talk about. 2 weeks ago, they saw weapons that nobody ever heard of. They weren't able to fire one shot at us. They said, what happened? Everything was discombobulated. They said, we've got them in our sights. Press the trigger, and nothing happened. No anti-aircraft missiles went up. There was one that went up about 30 feet and crashed down right next to the people that sent it. They said, what the hell is going on? Those defensive systems were made by Russia and by China. So they're going to go back to the drawing boards, I guess. Greenland is a vast, almost entirely uninhabited and undeveloped territory that's sitting undefended in a key strategic location between the United States, Russia, and China. That's exactly where it is, right smack in the middle. Wasn't important nearly when we gave it back. You know, when we gave it back, it wasn't the same as it is now. It's not important for any other reason, you know. Everyone talks about the minerals. There's so many places. There's no rare earth. No such thing as rare earth. There's rare processing. But there's so much rare earth. And this, to get to this rare earth, you got to go through hundreds of feet of ice. That's not the reason we need it. We need it for strategic national security and international security. This enormous unsecured island is actually part of North America on the northern frontier of the Western Hemisphere. That's our territory. It is therefore a core national security interest of the United States of America. And in fact, it's been our policy for hundreds of years to prevent outside threats from entering our hemisphere, and we've done it very successfully. We've never been stronger than we are now. That's why American presidents have sought to purchase Greenland for nearly 2 centuries. You know, for 2 centuries they've been trying to do it. They should have kept it after World War II, but they had a different president. That's all right. People think differently. Much more necessary now than it was at that time, however. In 2019, Denmark said that they would spend over $200 million to strengthen Greenland's defenses. But as you know, they spent less than 1% of that amount. 1%. There's no sign of Denmark there. And I say that with great respect for Denmark, whose people I love, whose leaders are very good. It's the United States alone that can protect this giant mass of land, this giant piece of ice, develop it and improve it and make it so that it's good for Europe and safe for Europe and good for us. And that's the reason I'm seeking immediate negotiations to once again discuss the acquisition of Greenland by the United States, just as we have acquired many other territories throughout our history, as many of the European nations have. They've acquired. There's nothing wrong with it. Many of them. Some went in reverse, actually, if you look. Some had great, vast wealth, great, vast lands all over the world. They went in reverse. They're stuck back where they started. That happens too. But some grow. But this would not be a threat to NATO. This would greatly enhance the security of the entire alliance, the NATO alliance. The United States is treated very unfairly by NATO. I want to tell you that. And when you think about it, nobody can dispute it. We give so much and we get so little in return. And I've been a critic of NATO for many years. And yet I've done more to help NATO than any other president by far, than any other person. You wouldn't have NATO if I didn't get involved in my first term. The war with Ukraine is an example. We are thousands of miles away, separated by a giant ocean. It's a war that should have never started, and it wouldn't have started if the 2020 U.S. presidential election weren't rigged. It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. It's probably breaking news, but it should be. It was a rigged election. Can't have rigged elections. You need strong borders, strong elections, and ideally a good press. I always say it. Strong borders, strong elections, free, fair elections, and a fair media. The media is terrible. It's very crooked. It's very biased, terrible. But someday it'll straighten out because it's losing all credibility. Think of it. When I win in a landslide, a giant landslide, won all 7 swing states, won the popular vote, won everything, and I only get negative press. That means that it has no credibility. And if they're going to get credibility, they're going to have to be fair. So you need a fair press. But you also need those other elements. And I inherited a terrible, terrible situation. If you look, the border was open. The inflation was raging. Everything was bad with the United States when I came into office. But I also inherited a mess with Ukraine and Russia, something that would have never happened. And I know Putin very well. He and I would discuss Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye, but he wasn't going to do anything. I said, Vladimir, you're not doing it. He would never have done it. It was terrible what happened. I could see it happening, too. After I left, I could see it happening. Biden had given Ukraine and NATO $350 billion, a staggering sum, $350 billion. I came in, and just like the southern border, just like inflation, just like our economy, I said, wow, this place is in trouble, meaning our country. All of these things were out of control. But the border was out of control. We fixed it with the strongest border anywhere in the world. And I've now been working on this war for 1 year, during which time I settled 8 other wars. India, Pakistan. I settled other wars that were Vladimir Putin called me, Armenia, Azerbaijan. He said, I can't believe you settled that one. They were going on for 35 years. I settled it in 1 day. And President Putin called me. He said, you know, I can't believe I've worked on that war for 10 years trying to settle it. I couldn't do it. I said, do me a favor, focus on settling your war. Don't worry about that one. What does the United States get out of all of this work, all of this money, other than death, destruction, and massive amounts of cash going to people who don't appreciate what we do? They don't appreciate what we do. I'm talking about NATO. I'm talking about Europe. They have to work on Ukraine. We don't. The United States is very far away. We have a big, beautiful ocean separating us. We have nothing to do with it. Until I came along, NATO was only supposed to pay 2% of GDP. But they weren't paying. Most of the countries weren't paying anything. The United States was paying for virtually 100% of NATO. And I got that stopped. I said, that's not fair. But then, more importantly, I got NATO to pay 5%, and now they were paying, and now they are paying. So something nobody said was possible. They said, we will never go up higher than 2%. But they went to 5%, and now they're paying the 5%. They didn't pay the 2%, and now they're paying the 5%. And they're stronger for it, and they have an excellent, by the way, Secretary General, who's possibly in the room. Mark, are you here? Yes, he's here. Hello, Mark. We never asked for anything, and we never got anything. We probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force, where we would be, frankly, unstoppable. But I won't do that. Okay? Now everyone's saying, oh, good. That's probably the biggest statement I made, because people thought I would use force. I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force. All the United States is asking for is a place called Greenland, where we already had it as a trustee, but respectfully returned it back to Denmark not long ago after we defeated the Germans, the Japanese, the Italians, and others in World War II. We gave it back to them. We were a powerful force then, but we are a much more powerful force now. after I rebuilt the military in my first term and continue to do so today. We have a budget of $1.5 trillion. We're bringing back battleships. The battleship is 100 times more powerful than the great battleships you saw in World War II, those great, big, gorgeous ships, the Missouri, the Iowa, the Alabama. Because I thought maybe we could take them out of mothballs. They said, no, sir, these ships are 100, think of that, 100 times more powerful than those big, magnificent pieces of art that you saw so many times ago, that you still see on television. You say, wow, what a force. 100 times, each ship 100 times more powerful than the big battleships of the past. So that was the end of the mothball story. So what we have gotten out of NATO is nothing except to protect Europe from the Soviet Union and now Russia. I mean, we've helped them for so many years. We've never gotten anything, except we pay for NATO. And we paid for many years until I came along. We paid for, in my opinion, 100% of NATO because they weren't paying their bills. And all we're asking for is to get Greenland, including right title and ownership, because you need the ownership to defend it. You can't defend it on a lease. Number one, legally it's not defensible that way, totally. And number two, psychologically, who the hell wants to defend a license agreement or a lease, which is a large piece of ice in the middle of the ocean where if there is a war, much of the action will take place on that piece of ice. Think of it. Those missiles would be flying right over the center of that piece of ice. All we want from Denmark for national and international security and to keep our very energetic and dangerous potential enemies at bay is this land on which we're going to build the greatest golden dome ever built. We're building a golden dome that's going to, just by its very nature, going to be defending Canada. Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. I watched your prime minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. But they should be grateful to us. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements. What we did for Israel was amazing, but that's nothing compared to what we have planned for the United States, Canada, and the rest of the world. We are going to build a dome like no other. We did it for Israel. And by the way, I told Bibi, stop taking credit for the dome. That's our technology. That's our stuff. But they had a lot of courage, and they were good fighters, and they did a good job, and we wiped out the Iran nuclear threat like nobody can believe. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. That, Venezuela, taking down Soleimani, wiping out al-Baghdadi when he tried to reinstitute ISIS. We did a lot. I did a lot of big things, all perfectly executed. Everyone was perfectly executed. Somebody told me that, a military expert told me, sir, everything you've done has been perfectly executed. I said, I know. So other presidents have spent, whether foolishly or not, trillions and trillions of dollars on NATO and gotten absolutely nothing in return. We've never asked for anything. It's always a one-way street. Now they want us to help them with Ukraine. And we say, we're going to. I'm really helping, not even them. I want to see, last week, if you saw, it was 10,000 soldiers, but last month it was 31,000 soldiers died. 31,000. That's this room times, the number of people in this room times 30. Think of it. 30,000 soldiers died in 1 month. The month before it was 27,000. The month before that it was 28,000. The month before that it was 25,000. It's a bloodbath over there. And that's what I want to stop. It doesn't help the United States, but these are souls. These are young people. Look like you, look like some of you right in the front row. They go to war. Their parents are so proud. Oh, there he goes, comes back. 2 weeks later, they get a call, your son's head's been blown off. I want to stop it. It's a horrible war. It's the worst since World War II. They keep going, they'll exceed World War II. The numbers are staggering, how many people they've lost. They don't want to talk about it. Ukraine and Russia lost just tremendous amounts. And I'm dealing with President Putin, and he wants to make a deal, I believe. I'm dealing with President Zelensky, and I think he wants to make a deal. I'm meeting him today. He might be in the audience right now. But they got to get that war stopped, because too many people are dying, needlessly dying. Too many souls are being lost. It's the only reason I'm interested in doing it. But in doing it, I'm helping Europe, I'm helping NATO, and I've until the last few days when I told them about Iceland, they loved me. They called me daddy, right, last time. A very smart man said, he's our daddy. He's running it. I was like running it. I went from running it to being a terrible human being. But now what I'm asking for is a piece of ice, cold and poorly located, that can play a vital role in world peace and world protection. It's a very small ask compared to what we have given them for many, many decades. But the problem with NATO is that we'll be there for them 100%. But I'm not sure that they'd be there for us. If we gave them the call, gentlemen, we are being attacked. We're under attack by such and such a nation. I know them all very well. I'm not sure that they'd be there. I know we'd be there for them. I don't know that they'd be there for us. So with all of the money we expend, with all of the blood, sweat, and tears, I don't know that they'd be there for us. They're not there for us on Iceland, that I can tell you. I mean, our stock market took the first dip yesterday because of Iceland. So Iceland's already cost us a lot of money. But that dip is peanuts compared to what it's gone up. And we have an unbelievable future in that stock. That stock market is going to be doubled. We're going to hit 50,000, and that stock market's going to double in a relatively short period of time because of everything that's happening. But this is a good example. After giving NATO and European nations trillions and trillions of dollars in defense, they buy our weapons. We make the greatest weapons in the world, but now we're going to make them faster, much faster. You saw that. I put a cap on the salaries, and I put no buybacks, no stock buybacks, no various other things that they were doing. I mean, they were making $50 million, but it would take them 3 years to give you a Patriot missile. I said, that's not good. My chauffeur can do a better job than that, and he makes slightly less than 50. They make big salaries. If they're going to make those big salaries, they're going to have to produce a lot faster. The good news is we have the greatest equipment in the world. Now we're going to start making it a lot faster. They're going to build additional plants. And all of the money that goes into stock buybacks is going to go into building plants. We're not allowing stock buybacks by defense companies any longer. They're going to build new plants to make Tomahawks, Patriots. We have the best equipment, F-35s. F-47, the new one just coming out. They say it's the most devastating plane, fighter jet ever. Who knows? They called it 47. If I don't like it, I'm going to take the 47 off it. I wonder why they called it 47. We'll have to think about that. But if I don't like it, I'm going to take that 47 off. But it's supposed to be the Stage 6. It's supposed to be the first Stage 6 plane, undetectable, like our B-2 bombers were undetectable. They flew right over Iran. They were undetectable. And they did their job, and they got the hell out of there. So we want a piece of ice for world protection, and they won't give it. We've never asked for anything else, and we could have kept that piece of land, and we didn't. So they have a choice. You can say yes, and we will be very appreciative, or you can say no, and we will remember. A strong and secure America means a strong NATO, and that's one reason why I'm working every day to ensure our military is very powerful, our borders are very strong, and above all, our economy is strong because national security requires economic security and economic prosperity, and we have the greatest that we've ever had. Biden and his allies destroyed our economy. and gave us perhaps the worst inflation in American history. They say 48 years, I say forever, but I think 48 years is the equivalent to forever. Whether it's 48 years or ever, it's terrible, costing the typical family $33,000. What they did to this country should never, ever be forgotten. It's early, but he has to be rated as the worst president we've ever had by far. The auto pen did much of the damage. The auto pen, he was the auto pen president, because I don't believe a sane president would have ever signed the kind of things that he signed. But now grocery prices, energy prices, airfares, mortgage rates, rent, and car payments are all coming down, and they're coming down fast. We inherited a mess, but we've done a hell of a job in 12 months. Under my most favored nation policy for drug prices, the cost of prescription drugs is coming down by up to 90%, depending on the way you calculate. You could also say 5, 6, 7, 800%. There are two ways of figuring that. But we have a favored nations policy that every president wanted, no president was able to get. I got it, and other nations approved it. And I had to use tariffs in order to get it because they said, no way. In other words, a pill that costs 10% in London costs $130. Think it costs $10 in London, costs $130 in New York or in Los Angeles. And I'd say, boy, that's bad. Friends of mine would say, you know, we go to London, you can buy the stuff for nothing. We go all over the world, we can buy it for nothing. Because basically America was subsidizing every nation in the world because presidents allowed them to get away with it. It became very tough. So when I called up Emmanuel Macron, I watched him yesterday with those beautiful sunglasses. What the hell happened? But I watched him sort of be tough. But he was at $10 for a pill. And I said, Emmanuel, and I have all the big pharmaceutical companies are in total agreement. It wasn't easy, by the way. They're tough, smart. They've been getting away with this scam for a long time. But they gave it up. But they said, you'll never get the countries to approve it. I said, why is that? Because they won't. They always said, we're not paying any more. Get the rest for the United States. So over the years, they stayed the same. We just went up, up, up. And I mean, we would pay 13, 14, 15 times more than certain countries would. So I said, no, they'll approve it 100%. Sir, you'll never get them to approve it. I said, I guarantee you. But I actually started with Emmanuel, who probably is in the room too. And I like him. I actually like him. Hard to believe, isn't it? And I said, Emmanuel, you're going to have to lift the price of that pill to $20, maybe $30. Think of that. That means it's a doubling of prescription drugs. Might be a tripling, might be a quadrupling. It's not easy. No, 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 Donald, I will not do that. I said, yes, you will, 100%. He said, no, no, no. You're asking me to double. I said, Emmanuel, you've been taking advantage of the United States for 30 years with prescription drugs. You really should do it, and you will do it. I have no doubt. In fact, I am 100% sure you're going to. No, 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 I will not do it. Because he has to, in all fairness to him, he has to double or triple. Because the world being a bigger place than the United States, it's not that you meet in the middle. You just have to go up some, and we come down a lot. They go up a little, we come down a lot. So we're at $130, they're at 10. So they may have to go to 20 or 30. No more than that. I said, Emmanuel, you're going to be doubling or tripling? No, no, no. I said, here's the story, Emmanuel. The answer is you're going to do it. You're going to do it fast. And if you don't, I'm putting a 25% tariff on everything that you sell into the United States and a 100% tariff on your wines and champagnes. And that's about 10 times more than what I'm requesting. And you're going to do it. I don't want to go public with it, but you may make me do that. No, no, Donald, I will do it. I will do it. It took me, on average, 3 minutes a country, saying the same thing. You will do it. They all said, no, 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 I will not do it. You're asking me to double the cost of prescription. I said, that's right, because you've been screwing us for 30 years. And they said, we will not do it. I said, that's all right. On Monday morning, we're putting a 25, 30, 50, I gave different numbers for different countries. This is also national security we're talking about. Not fair. We're not going to subsidize the whole world. And every one of those countries have agreed to do it. So one of the biggest things that I've done is the fact that we have now most favored nation. We will pay whatever the lowest price is in the entire world. So our drug prices are going to be coming down by staggering 90%. Again, you could say 1,000%, 2,000%. Depends on the way you want to figure it. But we'll go with the way the fake news likes it better because it sounds, can you imagine a 90% reduction sounds much worse. But drug prices are going to be coming down tremendously in all the nations, and I appreciate them doing it. But they did it, in all fairness, without tariffs. I wouldn't have been able to get it done. After declining $3,000 under Biden, real incomes are up in the United States by $2,000, $3,000, and even $5,000 and more. Home ownership has always been a symbol of health and vigor of American society, but that goal fell out of reach for millions and millions of people in the Biden era because interest rates went up so high. Today, I'm taking action to bring back this bedrock of the American dream. In recent years, Wall Street giants and institutional investment firms, many of you are here, many of you are good friends of mine, many of you are supporters. Sorry to do this to you, I'm so sorry. But you've driven up housing prices by purchasing hundreds of thousands of single-family homes, and it's been a great investment for them. Often as much as 10% of houses on the market. You know, the crazy thing is a person can't get depreciation on a house, but when a corporation buys it, they get depreciation. Okay, that's something we're going to have to think about, too. I don't know if too many people think about that. You buy a corporation, they buy 500 houses. They buy hundreds of thousands. They buy 500 houses. They can take depreciation. A person sweats and works and buys one house, they can't. But homes are built for people, not for corporations, and America will not become a nation of renters. We're not going to do that. That's why I have signed an executive order banning large institutional investors from buying single-family homes. It's just not fair to the public. They're not able to buy a house. And I'm calling on Congress to pass that ban into permanent law, and I think they will. One of the biggest barriers to saving for a down payment has been surging credit card debt. The profit margin for credit card companies now exceeds 50%, one of the biggest. And they charge Americans interest rates of 28%, 30%, 31%, 32%. Whatever happened to usury? So to help our citizens recover from the Biden disaster, all caused by this horrible president, just horrible president, I'm asking Congress to cap credit card interest rates at 10% for 1 year. And this will help millions of Americans save for a home. They have no idea they're paying 28%. They go out there a little late in their payment and they end up losing their house. It's terrible. To unleash innovation and savings and financing, I'm also working to ensure America remains the crypto capital of the world. And to that end, last year, I signed the landmark Genius Act into law. Now Congress is working very hard on crypto market structure legislation, Bitcoin, all of them, which I hope to sign very soon, unlocking new pathways for Americans to reach financial freedom. And I did it for two reasons. Number one, I thought it was politically good, and it was. I got tremendous political support. But more importantly, China wanted that market, too. It's just like they want the AI. And we've got that market, I think, pretty well locked up. If I didn't do it, you know, Biden was totally against it until before the election when they realized that, you know, there were millions of people voting against him over crypto. And all of a sudden, they loved it very much, but it was too late. They blew it. But it is politically popular, but it's much more importantly, we have to make it so that China doesn't get the hold of it. And once they have that hold, we're not going to be able to get it back. So I'm honored to have done it. Finally, I've instructed government-backed institutions to purchase up to $200 billion in mortgage bonds to bring down interest rates. And I'll be announcing a new Fed chairman in the not-too-distant future. I think he'll do a very good job. See, I gave away some of it. I did give that away. So we have something, got something, but somebody that's very respected. They're all respected. They're all great. Everyone that I interviewed is great. Everyone could do, I think, a fantastic job. Problem is they change once they get the job. They do. You know, they're saying everything I want to hear, and then they get the job. They're locked in for 6 years. They get the job, and all of a sudden, let's raise rates a little bit. I call them, sir, we'd rather not talk about this. It's amazing how people change once they have the job, but it's too bad. Sort of disloyalty, but they got to do what they think is right. We have a terrible chairman right now. Jerome, too late Powell. He's always too late. And he's very late with interest rates, except before the election, he was just fine for the other side. So we're going to have somebody that's great, and we hope he does the right job. Last week, the average 30-year mortgage rate dropped below 6% for the first time in many years. Another major factor in driving up housing costs was the mass invasion of our borders. And I have to say one thing about housing, because nobody ever says this. I am very protective of people that already own a house, of which we have millions and millions and millions. And because we have had such a good run, the house values have gone up tremendously. And these people have become wealthy. They weren't wealthy. They become wealthy because of their house. And every time you make it more and more and more affordable for somebody to buy a house cheaply, you're actually hurting the value of those houses, obviously, because the one thing works in tandem with the other. And I don't want to do anything that's going to hurt the value of people that own a house, who for the first time in their lives are walking around the streets of whatever city they're in, very proud that their house is worth $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. Now, if I want to really crush the housing market, I could do that so fast that people could buy houses, but you would destroy a lot of people that already have houses. In some cases, they've mortgaged their house, and the mortgage would be very low, and all of a sudden the mortgage without any changes becomes very high, and they end up losing the house. I'm not going to hurt, and I speak with Scott, who's doing a fantastic job, and Howard, who's doing a fantastic job, and all of my people. And I always say, look, you know, I can crush the hell out of the market. We can drop interest rates to a level, and that's one thing we do want to do. That's natural. That's good for everybody. You know, the dropping of the interest rates, we should be paying a much lower interest rate than we are. We should be paying the lowest interest rate of any country in the world, because without the United States, you don't have a country. I mean, I had a case with Switzerland. We happened to be in Switzerland. Maybe I'll give you a quick story. But they were paying nothing. They make beautiful watches, great watches, Rolex, all of them. They were paying nothing to the United States when they sent their product in. And we had a $41 billion deficit. $41 billion with this beautiful place. Flew over it, isn't it nice? So I said, let's put a 30% tariff on them, so that we get back some of it, not all of it at all. We'd still have a deficit, big deficit. We had 41 million. That's a big deficit. And I said, let's put a tariff on. Different tariffs, different places. You're all party to them. In some cases, victims to them. But in the end, it's a fair thing. And most of you realize that. But we put a 30% tariff on Switzerland, and all hell broke loose. They were calling, I mean, like you wouldn't believe. And I know so many people from Switzerland, incredible place, incredible, brilliant place. But I then realized that they're only good because of us. And there's so many other examples. I mean, us and probably other places, but a majority of the money they make is because of us, because we never charged them anything. So they come in, they sell their watches, no tariffs, no nothing. They walk away, they make $41 billion on just us. So I said, no, we can't do that. So I'm going to bring it up. I'm still would have a deficit pretty substantial, but I brought it up to 30%. And I guess Prime Minister, I don't think President, I think Prime Minister called a woman, and she was very repetitive. She said, no, 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 you cannot do that, 30%. You cannot do that. We are a small, small country. I said, yeah, but you have a big, big deficit. You may be small, but you have a bigger deficit than big countries. He said, no, 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 please, you cannot do it. Kept saying the same thing over and over. We are a small country. I said, but you're a big country in terms of, and she just rubbed me the wrong way, I'll be honest with you. And I said, all right, thank you, ma'am, appreciate it. Do not do this. Thank you very much, ma'am. And I made it 39%. And then all hell really broke out. And I was paid visits by everybody. Rolex came to see me. They all came to see me. But I realized, and I reduced it, because I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to hurt them. And we brought it down to a, lower level. Doesn't mean it's not going up, but we brought it down to a lower level. But they pay now, tariff. But I realized that we have many places like that where they're making a fortune because of the United States. Without the United States, they wouldn't be making anything. Think of it. Switzerland made $41 billion on us. And as she said, it's a small place. And I realized with that, I don't know, it was so, because she was so aggressive. And I realized in that conversation that the United States is keeping the whole world afloat. Many places, I could give you 6, 7 places just in the people in this little area. I know every one of them. They're looking down. They don't want to see me. They don't want to stare me in the eyes. But they're taking advantage of, everybody took advantage of the United States. But I've been very fair, and I gave them a tariff, and it was fine. But I realized that without us, it's not Switzerland anymore. Without us, it's not any of the countries that are represented here. And we want to work with the countries. We want to work with them. We're not looking to destroy them. I could have said 39, 40%. I could have said I want a 70% tariff, then we make money with Switzerland. But Switzerland would have been probably destroyed, financially destroyed. I don't want to do that. But we should be paying the lowest interest rate of everybody. I hope Scott's listening to this, because we should be paying the lowest interest rate of everybody. Without us, most of the countries don't even work. And then you have the protection factor. Without our military, which is the greatest in the world by far, without our military, you have threats that you wouldn't believe. You wouldn't believe. You don't have threats because of us, and that's because of NATO. One other thing, and I have to say it so importantly, in the old days, and I used to say I'm the youngest in the room. Now I'm among the older. I hate to say it. I don't feel old, but I'm among the older. But I remember not long ago, 20, 25 years ago, when good news came out about, let's say, the United States. The United States had a great quarter. The United States had a great month. All the stocks went up. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Now when they say the United States had a record quarter, it's unbelievable how well it's doing, all the stocks crash because they say, oh no, inflation, they're going to raise interest rates. And they do. Some of these stupid people like Powell, they raise interest rates. And what they do is they stop you from being successful. It used to be when we had a great quarter, a great month, great earnings, great anything, any good news, the stock market went up. That's the way it's going to be. We got to do that again, because that's the way it should be. Now when we have a great month, they want to kill it. Like we did over 5%. People were surprised. We should do 20%. We could do 25%. When we announce good numbers, and the reason is they're so petrified of inflation. And growth doesn't mean inflation. We've had tremendous growth with very low inflation. In fact, growth can fight inflation, proper growth. So we want to get back to the days when we announce great numbers, because we're going to be announcing phenomenal. You know, all these factories that are being built at record, thousands of businesses are being built right now. Remember, $18 trillion is invested. I think the second number is 3, and that was China many years ago. Investments in the country from outside. 18 trillion, nobody's ever seen. And that's money coming in and building things, factories. Thousands of businesses are being built, thousands. Hundreds of big factories, car plants are moving back to the United States. They're coming in from Canada, they're coming in from Mexico, from Japan. Japan's coming in and building plants here in order to avoid tariffs. They're coming in from China, they're coming in from all over the world. We have more plants being built now, car plants, than we've ever had built, even in the heyday from the 1940s and 50s. And they're bigger. They don't use renovations anymore where they take an old plant, they rip it down, they build a brand new plant, super modern plant. But it's happening at levels that nobody's ever seen. In 2024, the U.S. built less than 2 million new homes, but Biden admitted more than 8 million new migrants. And those days are over. In 2025, for the first time in 50 years, the United States had reverse migration. Boy, that was nice. And these were criminals that were being taken out of our country because they allowed people to come into our country from jails, from gangs, drug dealers, murderers. 11,888 murderers. We've gotten most of them out. And then ICE gets beat up by stupid people from leadership in Minnesota. We actually are helping Minnesota so much, but they don't appreciate it. Most places do. You know, Washington, D.C. is the safest place now in the United States. It was a very dangerous place to walk, and now you can walk with your wife, your kids, right through the middle of the city. Right now, Washington, D.C. is as safe as it gets. It was one of the most unsafe, I had to admit. We sent in the military, the National Guard. Within 2 months, it was great. Within 3 months, it's like a really great place and a safe place and a beautiful place. It's even been cleaned up. The graffiti's gone. The fences are gone. We don't have to worry about fences anymore. All of the places, the grasses are cut and replaced with new grass in many cases. It's all going to happen in the spring. But Washington and D.C. is beautiful again, and it's safe. New restaurants are opening up. They were all closing. Now you can't get into a restaurant. Restaurants in Washington, D.C. are all opening. Memphis also, Memphis, Tennessee, New Orleans, Louisiana. We were there for 3 weeks. We've cut the crime down by 64%. Within another month, we'll have virtually no crime there. We can do that all over. We're going to help the people in California. We want to have no crime. I know Gavin was here. I used to get along so great with Gavin when I was president. Gavin's a good guy. And we're going to, if he needed it, I would do it in a heartbeat. I'd love to see. We did help them a lot in Los Angeles, a lot with the early in my term when they had some problems. But we would love to do it. I will say this, if I were a Democrat governor or whatever, I would call up Trump. I'd say, come on in, make us look good. Because we're cutting crime down to nothing. And we're taking people out, career criminals, who are only going to do bad things, and we're bringing them back to their countries. But where we've done it, it's been amazing. And we have a capacity to do it at much greater levels. We're cutting illegal aliens off welfare and other government benefits, and I have directed that starting immediately, there will be no more payments to sanctuary cities because they are really just sanctuaries for criminals. They're really protecting criminals, and those are the ones we have to get out of the country. Murderers, drug dealers, the mentally insane. They emptied their mental institutions into the United States. And despite that, we have the lowest crime numbers that we've ever had in the history of the country. Just came out. But equally importantly, we're cracking down on more than $19 billion in fraud that was stolen by Somalian bandits. Can you believe that Somalian? They turned out to be higher IQ than we thought. I always say these are low IQ people. How did they go into Minnesota and steal all that money? And we have, you know, they're pirates. They're good pirates, right? But we shoot them out of the water just like we shoot the drug boats out. They're not pirating too many boats lately, do you notice? When they go out into those boats, they want to take over a $1.5 billion tanker loaded up with oil. and they say, we're going to blow up your boat. They have powerful weapons. You hit the side of the boat, you blow the whole thing up. The insurance companies are petrified, so they say, just give them the boat. We'll give them money instead. And I don't do that. We blow them right the hell out of the water. We see them going out, we blow them out of the water. We don't have any pirates so much anymore. If we do, they won't be there long. We've cut down with the hitting of the boats that are loaded up with drugs, including submarines. Can you believe they actually buy small, they call them mini subs, very fast. They're meant for drugs. We've knocked out 2 of them. The Democrats say they were fishing. You have ruined somebody's fishing weekend, I would say. A submarine is not a fishing boat. You don't fish. But we've knocked down drugs by water, the oceans, the sea, by 97.2%. Think of that. And I actually say, who the hell are the 3%? Because I would not want to be piloting one of those boats. We knocked them down, and now we're going to start on land. We're going to knock it all out. The land is the easy part. What we did on sea is incredible, and that's our great military. The situation in Minnesota reminds us that the West cannot mass import foreign cultures, which have failed to ever build a successful society of their own. I mean, we're taking people from Somalia, and Somalia is a failed, it's not a nation. Got no government, got no police, got no military, got no nothing. And then we have this fake congressperson who they just reported is worth $30 million. You believe this? Ilhan Omar, talking about the Constitution provides me. She comes from a country that's not a country, and she's telling us how to run America. Not going to get away with it much longer, let me tell you. The explosion of prosperity and conclusion and progress that built the West did not come from our tax codes. It ultimately came from our very special culture. This is the precious inheritance that America and Europe have in common. We share it. We share it, but we have to keep it strong. We have to become stronger, more successful, and more prosperous than ever. We have to defend that culture and rediscover the spirit that lifted the West from the depths of the Dark Ages to the pinnacle of human achievement. We live in an incredible, changing period. It's an unbelievable time, but we have to take advantage of the time that we're in. In our hands are technologies that our ancestors could scarcely have. I mean, they couldn't have even dreamt some of the things that we see today. And so rapidly they're produced. I mean, AI, 2 years ago, nobody ever heard of the term, and now everybody's talking about it. And it can have some very good purpose. It could also have some dangerous purpose, and for that we have to watch out. But some tremendous things are happening because of it. And we're leading by so much. We're doing so well. But opportunities that are bigger and grander than ever before in human history are right before us. It is the pioneers in this room. Many of you in this room are true pioneers. You're truly brilliant people. Just your ability to get a ticket is brilliant because you have about 50 people for every seat. I don't know what, that's Larry. Everything Larry touches turns to gold. He made this very successful. But you're in this room, and some of you are the greatest leaders anywhere in the world. You're the greatest brains anywhere in the world. And the future is unlimited, and to a large part because of you, and we have to protect you, and we have to cherish you. I always say we have to cherish our brilliant people because there aren't many of them. So together with confidence, boldness, and persistence, let us lift up our people, grow our economies, defend our shared destiny, and build a future for our citizens that is more ambitious, more exciting, more inspiring, and greater than the world has ever seen. We're in a position to do things that nobody else has ever even thought of before. And many of the people in this room are the ones that are doing it, and I want to congratulate you, and I'm with you all the way. You can do things that nobody else can even think about. So I congratulate you on your tremendous success. And the United States is back, bigger, stronger, better than ever before. And I'll see you around. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much.
You've been watching U.S. President Donald Trump speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. He spoke for about an hour and 20 minutes, a little shy maybe of an hour and 20 minutes. It took about 30 minutes to get into probably the key things that we wanted to hear about. Greenland, he said they were going to seek immediate negotiations to try and acquire it, that they've been going on. It's not a threat to NATO. This would instead strengthen it. Are we going to pop back in for some of the questions, or are we taking a break from the president right now? One of the big things... Sorry, we're going to take questions. Are we going to listen to some of the questions? No questions. Okay, we're just going to pull out of this now. An hour and 20 minutes. It was. Some people might call it wide-ranging speech. Other people might call it a little more rambling. We'll let those people decide it. But the other thing that was interesting, along with Greenland, comments about Carney, Prime Minister Carney. He said he watched Carney and he didn't think he was grateful. And he said, "Mark, watch what you say next time." And then there was various other subjects that were covered in that speech. The markets are responding. I was looking just recently. I think most of them are now in the green right now. We'll see what happens for the rest of the day with the markets when it comes to that speech from President Donald Trump. No real talk of the tariffs, though, in the middle of all that speech. There you go. Take a look. You can see all of them bouncing back after that off day yesterday in response to the talk of tariffs against European countries if they weren't going to make a deal for Greenland. So we will have to wait and see what happens with that. But that is it for us here on the street. Thanks to Ryan Bushell for joining us for today. He was very patient with that speech. He had to leave and get back to work. And he's up next with the rest of The Open. Thanks for joining us.